Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving into a story that literally has it all. We're talking a high-stakes political thriller, completely packed with power, jealousy, and some truly masterful psychological manipulation. We are, of course, talking about Act 1 of William Shakespeare's brilliant play, Julius Caesar. Let's jump right into the opening act of one of history's absolute greatest dramas. Here is our roadmap for today. First, we'll look at the historical setup of the Republic. Then, Act 1, Scene 1. Next, decoding the Shakespearean humor, followed by omens and the soothsayer. And finally, we'll unpack the manipulation of Brutus.
All right, kicking things off with Section 1, the historical setup of the Republic. Before we get swept up in the poetry and the dialogue, we absolutely need to ground ourselves in the real historical context that was unfolding right before the curtain even raised. You see, Julius Caesar wasn't just a character on a page. He was a real, massively powerful Roman leader. Caesar was born back in 100 BCE. Fast forward to 60 BCE, and Rome was effectively run by the first triumvirate, which was this incredibly powerful three-man alliance of Caesar, Pompey, and Crassus. But, as you might guess, power sharing rarely lasts forever. A brutal civil war eventually broke out between Caesar and Pompey. And that brings us exactly to 44 BCE, the precise year our play begins. It's marked by Caesar's triumphant return to Rome after completely crushing Pompey's sons. He is standing at the absolute peak of his power. Moving right along to Section 2, Act 1, Scene 1, where Rome is completely divided. So with that explosive history in our back pocket, we find the spark that ignites the whole play on the deeply divided streets of Rome in 44 BCE. Right out of the gate, Rome is split down the middle. On one side, you have the commoners, the plebeians, and they absolutely love Caesar. To them, he's a heroic military general who's expanding Rome's territories, and they're out in the streets partying it up to celebrate his victory. But on the flip side, we have the tribunes. These are the government elites, guys like Flavius and Marulus, and they are terrified of Caesar's growing power. Much like modern politicians who might fear a rising dictator, they see Caesar as a huge threat to their democratic republic. And let's be honest, they're also incredibly envious of how popular he is. These tribunes are actually so enraged by the celebrating crowds that they decide to march through the streets and physically strip all of Caesar's statues of their celebratory decorations. The whole motive here is captured perfectly in this quote from the tribune Flavius. "These growing feathers plucked from Caesar's wing will make him fly an ordinary pitch." He's using a really vivid metaphor here, comparing Caesar to a bird flying way too high above the rest of mankind. By plucking his feathers, meaning taking away his public praise and tearing down his decorations, they're hoping to weaken him and bring him back down to earth before he can soar into a full-blown dictatorship.
Which brings us to Section 3, decoding the Shakespearean humor.
Now, you might be thinking a 400-year-old political play is going to be super stiff and serious the whole time, right? Well, not exactly. In the very first scene, the angry tribunes are yelling at the commoners to stop partying and go back to work. And they rudely question this cheeky shoemaker about his profession. The cobbler brilliantly frustrates these elites by saying he's a mender of bad souls, using his awl. Notice the awl, a pointed tool for piercing leather. The cobbler is making a hilarious pun. He's holding his tool, but playing on the word soul as in a person's spirit, versus the soul of a show. He is literally running rhetorical rings around these angry politicians, and it is just great. To really get that sharp humor, let's quickly demystify some of the early modern English you're going to encounter in this act. It's like a quick cheat sheet. Thou simply means you. Art translates to are. Wherefore actually means why, not where. That one trips a lot of people up. And knave is just a fantastic word for a disobedient fool or a scoundrel. Keeping these in mind will really empower you to enjoy the text, rather than feeling totally alienated by it. All right, into Section 4, Omens and the Soothsayer, covering Scene 2. So here's where we really see Caesar's massive, overwhelming power placed right up against his glaring, fatal flaws. The backdrop for all of this is a chaotic celebration called the Feast of Lupercalia. It's a Roman festival of fertility held on February 15th. And during this festival, we learn something super fascinating about the seemingly invincible Julius Caesar. He is deeply superstitious. He publicly commands his right-hand man Antony, who is running in a traditional foot race for the festival, to make sure he touches Caesar's wife, Calpurnia, as he runs past. Why? Because Caesar believes in old superstition that the touch of a holy runner will miraculously cure her infertility. Caesar desperately wants an heir, and it reveals this huge, vulnerable crack in his armor. But right in the middle of this festive chaos, a chilling voice completely cuts through the crowd. A soothsayer, which is basically a literal fortune teller, calls out to Caesar with what is arguably the most iconic warning in literature. But where are the Ides of March? The Ides of March simply means March 15th. This is an absolutely huge, dramatic turning point for the whole play.
So how does Caesar react to being handed a specific date of danger by a mystic? He just completely brushes it off. He dismisses the warning, saying, "He is a dreamer, let us leave him, pass." And this right here perfectly highlights Caesar's tragic overconfidence. I mean, think about it. He's superstitious enough to believe in fertility rituals for his wife, but he's far too arrogant to ever show fear in public. He completely ignores a direct threat to his own life.
And that brings us to Section 5, the manipulation of Brutus, which is just a fascinating psychological match. That tragic arrogance we just saw sets the stage perfectly for the climax of Act 1. While Caesar leaves to go enjoy the games, a tense, high-stakes psychological chess match plays out in the shadows between two men who stayed behind. We have two guys here with vastly contrasting motives. First up, Cassius. He is shrewd, calculating, and driven by pure, unadulterated jealousy. He absolutely hates that he has to bow down to a man he considers his equal. Then we have Brutus. Brutus is widely known by everyone as a deeply honorable man. He isn't jealous of Caesar at all. Instead, he is driven by this genuine, terrifying fear that Rome is going to lose its democratic republic and fall to a dictator.
Now, Cassius is smart. He knows he needs the highly respected Brutus to give any conspiracy against Caesar some actual legitimacy. So how does he reel him in? He plays him like a fiddle, using intense emotional manipulation and flattery. Cassius offers to act as a mirror for Brutus, smoothly telling him that he just can't see his own incredible worth. He insists that all the people of Rome are constantly talking about how noble Brutus is, basically begging for him to step up and save them from Caesar's rule. Honestly, it is an absolute masterclass in gaslighting.
And Shakespeare ratchets up the anxiety here so brilliantly. While Cassius is pouring this poison into Brutus's ear, there is immense background tension going on. Trumpets are sounding off stage. The unseen crowd is cheering wildly. And with every single roar from that crowd, Brutus grows more and more terrified, confessing his fear that the people are officially crowning Caesar as king right at that very moment. The sensory overload of the offstage celebration acts as this insane pressure cooker, pushing Brutus closer and closer to the edge. Pushed right to the brink by Cassius's manipulation and his own internal panic for the Republic, Brutus finally breaks. He delivers his defining quote of the act: "I love the name of honor more than I fear death." He's declaring, plain and simple, that he is willing to sacrifice absolutely everything, even his own life, to protect Rome's freedom. Cassius has successfully weaponized Brutus's own sense of honor against his best friend Caesar. So that wraps up Act 1, and it leaves us with an incredibly provocative moral question. Is honor worth shedding blood? Brutus genuinely loves Caesar as a friend, but he clearly loves the freedom of his country more. As Cassius's dark conspiracy firmly takes root in Brutus's mind, the terrifying events of Act 2 are completely locked into place. So I'll leave you with this. What would you do if a person you cared about became a direct threat to the democracy of your nation? Thank you so much for exploring this phenomenal text with me on this explainer, and I absolutely can't wait to see you next time as we dive deeper into the fallout.